soul shoes and walk among the groups of two. It's not ideal, it's just how we feel. It's a shame we're easily amused. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Cast a stone and hit a hardcore view. Catchphrase of the day is that it's true. There's no coffee talk and only one way to please. It's a shame what you do moves me. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away.
Unmute. Hello, everybody. How are you?
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world.
It's technology help. We're just clicking around,
Is
trying
it this
to.
button? Is it that button?
Yeah.
We'll get there in the end. I'm just going to do this now. I can see everybody saying hello and putting their thumbs up. And we're not as quick as Lynn on the old show and put the message up there, but we can see your messages and we know you're there. So hello to everybody saying hello to us right now. And thank you, Akechi, for being there today. We could do with you being here.
So, g'day, Claire, Akashi, Chris,
Yeah, we can see you all.
Michael, Sarah, Donnie.
Yeah, we can literally see
Hatch
everybody.
61,
Okay, so
Nathan.
we know you're there. Okay,
We know you're there. Yeah.
All right. So what are we doing today?
That's the end of the show. Thanks for coming. It's
Yep,
great.
yep.
No, so what's happened is that a few of us watched the Ariel School documentary yesterday. It was really interesting. And so we thought that we would discuss that, and we brought a few people on. So if anybody has seen that documentary, feel free to pip in and give your opinion about it as well.
Yeah, we're going to give the Zeta perspective.
Always, absolutely. We'll
Yeah,
give the Zeta
that's
perspective.
what we talk from. So when I'll just say this because I'm not sure we've said it recently, but when we do give our opinions and our point of view on things, we really are talking from our own experiences and the information that we've been given from the beings that we work with. So just bear that in mind. It might not be something you've heard before, but we're not parroting from anywhere else. So anyway, so what are we going to do? We're going to bring on Oak and Chris.
Yeah.
And they are joining us for this chat this morning. So I'm going to try and make the technology work now. Hey, Megan.
Hey, Megan.
Okay, here we go.
Kelly. Bobs.
I did it.
You did it.
I did it. I love it when I can make it work. All right.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay. So we all watched that Ariel documentary yesterday about the school in Zimbabwe from years ago.
Yeah, 94 it was.
94, where the kids all saw the craft. Oak, what did you think of it?
I thought it was excellent, first of all, from someone with a lot of opinions about the various documentaries made about the phenomenon and ET contact. It's one of the best made I've come across. I just think it just did it. It was just done in a very raw way with no bells and whistles that kind of take away from the actual experience. So I was very pleased with just how it was approached. As an experiencer, it had a profound effect on me. I'm not ashamed to admit I was in tears for a good chunk of that documentary watching it.
Okay.
I would have had
why was
around
that?
the same age as the people in that documentary, and I would have had an encounter in childhood as well, not as profound as theirs, but, just from the past year of talking to experiencers, dealing with my own experiences and all that, and just seeing how grateful I am to, because the past year I've been in a community that I can share all this stuff with, and just seeing those kids kind of grow up in that environment of where they could not talk about it, and it's
Yeah.
just that's hard to conceptualize. And, one of the ways that we've found
So just
to process this is conversation with other experiencers, so they didn't really have that. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Sorry, you're going to ask something?
Oh, no, then somebody had asked, what are we talking about? And then Kelly Lewis typed in the Ariel School documentary.
Yes, so for anyone just coming in now, we're talking about the Ariel School documentary that was released quite recently. I agree with you about the emotional content there. As experiences, when you're going through all of this stuff, you really do feel very isolated, and you really could feel that poor lady's pain, having to live with it.
The thing about that is a lot of people that are having experiences now, or maybe 5 years ago, have really got a lot of people around them. You can go onto the internet, you can talk about it. You can. Back when we had experiences in 1960, whatever, you couldn't talk about it to anybody. You would have been placed into an institution, and you had to keep everything to yourself. And so it's not just, so for some people they're going through, say, one contact experience. Other people like myself are going through multiple contact experiences every week or month, whatever. You can't talk about it to everybody. You feel like you're in some sort of crazy house because all this stuff's going on, and then you hold it in for years and years and years.
And that's what Dr. Mack was actually explaining to the teachers, because this document, it's the Ariel phenomenon. It's called, for people asking in the chat. Dr. Mack went over there in '94, like literally 2 or 3 days after it happened, and he interviewed all the kids, spoke to all the kids. As well as being the awesome person he was actually highly trained psychologist working with kids as well. Perfect man for the job. And he was explaining to the teachers that the kids needed to talk about it. Even if the teachers didn't believe it, these kids had 100% convinced they'd experienced something, and even if they couldn't explain what it is, the kids needed to be given the opportunity to work through it and talk through it, just so they could manage what they'd experienced. And this one particular lady that the documentary was kind of focused on, it was like a dual focus, the documentary, where it had explained that she was brought up in a fundamentally a Christian, a heavy, strong Christian upbringing, and that her family actually moved her away. They took her out of the school literally within days of the experience happening, and moved her to the other side of the world, from Zimbabwe to Canada. And so this poor little girl and her 2 siblings, who were absolutely traumatized, were now taken away from what the support network that was kind of established at the school for the kids, completely isolated away from anyone she would have known, anyone else who would have experienced alongside with her. And you could just feel
the emotion.
Oh God, yeah.
What did you think, Chris?
I really identified with Emily too, especially with her struggle to find out what she was going to do with her life. She talked about struggling in school and then trying to figure out the direction for a career. And I don't know. I kind of, after my experiences, I kind of left my field, and now I'm kind of in this holding pattern. I feel like I'm in the same holding pattern that Emily's in.
Right.
And having people not believe you, or having parents that struggled with that, I can identify with that too. And it's hard, man. It really is. You go through trauma, and then there's another part of the trauma that has to deal with people not accepting the thing that you had trauma with, and it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going. I was just about to say, basically we're all in this together. That's all it comes down to. And we all have different experiences, different levels of resolution in regards to this as well. And I think that we're all a bit justified in wanting disclosure. That's the first thing. But the problem we've got is we're asking for disclosure from people that have basically just lied to us continually. And the disclosure that we have is what we give each other. Yeah. We see a lot of people that get, lights in the sky and all these sorts of things, and then somehow from that produce some level of contact from that. Whether it's real or not, I don't know. That's up to them to work that out themselves. But in the end, all that's going to happen is when the races disclose themselves, anything that wasn't true is just going to fall by the wayside. So if a person was saying that they're hearing from the Arcturians or the reptilians or whatever, and they never were, that person's going to realize that they were never, that reality that they created for themselves was never true. And I think that that's another part of disclosure that people are going to have to face as well. So I've noticed that there's just a couple of questions here. Somebody asked about a triangle, I believe. Where is all these questions flying up and down? I'll just leave that one.
Well, I have some questions for you guys if you want on the Ariel.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I thought we were going to get out of it.
Opinions.
Sorry?
I mean, do you have any sense of what beings that might have been that showed up at the school in 1994? Do you think it might have been the Zetas or?
A couple of things you can tell from what the description of the kids gave is that, firstly, the Zetas don't wear clothes. That's the first thing. Okay, the Zetas only ever wear a cape and a collar on their first introduction to a human, and then after that, they never put it back on again. That's the first thing. There will have been a race, probably the grey species, and you could say that they were, if you want to call them Zetas, that's fine. That would have resembled, the Zetas themselves, and they probably do wear clothes, those sorts of things. So remember, we're talking about 63 races. Yeah. Now, you can just about guarantee that it wasn't the abductors, that they're not going to turn up that way. Because there's 62 Zeta races, then of course, we call them Zeta because of the Zeta reticulum, not because they're specifically got something. It's like us, we're all humans, we're part of the human species, Was this something that you wanted to say? You were pointing down here.
No, I want the mouse.
Oh, you want the mouse? Hang on, wait for a second. Sorry, guys. Technology.
There you go. You keep going.
Sorry. Yeah. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that's very. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I had a question about the children described the Greys moving around the craft and in the brush as almost being kind of disconnected from time. Like they would move, like they would disappear and reappear somewhere else. Like they would move through a stride, like they are disappearing and then moving over here, reappearing over here, and then moving over here. And then others were like stuck in time where they're like slow motion running. And I'm just wondering what is that phenomenon? What's happening right there?
Oh, there's either two things. There's a couple of things that can be happening. So generally when craft land, they place like an etheric shield or a dome over the craft. Whatever's inside the shield will be seen as a distortion or some sort of like you were looking at it through water. So if they came closer to the surface of the dome, you'd see them. If they move back away from it, they'll look like a distortion or an entity distortion energy. If the dome wasn't in place, and the reason I think that the dome wasn't in place was because if it was, and the kids were anywhere near the dome, they would have been injured by the dome. That's the first thing. We've had a dome many times ourselves, and although people weren't injured, what happened was the 30 or 40 people that were on the property when the craft came and the dome was in place, the first thing was everybody got a migraine and nobody even knew that the craft had landed. You see, I didn't tell anyone. And about 8 people came to me and said, listen, all of a sudden we've all got migraines. We don't know what to do about it. And so we just contacted the Zetas, and everyone's migraines disappeared because they changed the frequency of the dome. So, of course, the kids didn't get migraines. So I'm saying that there was no dome in place. That was the first thing. But you would have seen the differentiation between the physical form through the dome as a fading in and out process. The other thing is that the beings often are able to shift frequency, and in doing so, or vibration, they can move outside of our light spectrum. So we can see within a specific light spectrum, they just shift, and of course, they move outside. They then become a distortion for us to see. So that's another way that they can be seen. So they can be seen as a distortion in fabric moving through the room.
Claire asked a question there. Did the girls say the ETs had lenses over their eyes? No mention of a lens. I know
what Claire's asking.
Yeah, I don't.
So I know that the story is that the Greys have lenses over their eyes. I've heard that many times. I'm not sure if people realise that there are races that don't have any lenses over their eyes, and they actually have what's called a nictitating lens. A lot of the Zeta races are able to see in the infrared spectrum, and that's not a lens that's used. That's actually naturally part of their eye. All right. Yeah.
And just talking about different races of the species, Angel Wing says the Greys are not our friends, but there are lots of different grey coloured races assumed are some but are not. And then
in regards to that,
Danny says there are some can easily be confused with the typical Greys. Those are different. And
so that's a discussion, isn't it? So it's like saying that all humans are bad or all humans are good.
Yeah.
We've got multiple races of humans on this planet, but they're all one species.
Yeah.
So we can't just say that everybody's bad or everybody's good. But we've come across one specific race from the Zeta Reticulum, and that grey race is troublesome. Straight up, they're troublesome. Other grey Zetas are not so at all, and not that way at all.
How many are there? 60?
There's about 62 of those races, and then of course you've got all the other races: Alpha Centaurian, Arcturian. You've got Reptilian, Draco Reptilian. I mean, it's endless, right? And is each of those races bad? Well, it depends who you talk to. Some people go yes, no, whatever. It comes down to people's individual experience. We need to clarify this. There's a wide range of contact between humans. Some people are on this end of the scale, and this end of the scale is they're being abducted, they're tying themselves to their beds, they are being taken all the time, and for them their life is hell. On the other end, we've got people that are seeing lights in the sky, they love it, they're out there running around looking for craft and all the rest of it. And then you've got the gradation of all of the contact in between. We can't just say this is bad, that's good. A person at this end may be going, look, it's bad, but I prefer still to have that contact. And other people would be going, I would never accept that as contact. It comes down to the individual person. All right. So yeah, like Claire says, it's this whole dualistic good and bad thing. I mean, can you imagine what the animals on the way to the slaughterhouse think of humans?
That's a whole different subject.
There you go.
Mikhail says, what do we think of the significance of the school being the midpoint for the local sacred burial sites? You see, that's interesting, isn't it? I'm going to guess, I'm just going to give, this is my opinion on this. This isn't something I've actually spoken to about with the Zeta in any way, actually. But for them, I don't believe that the burial sites would have had any relevance to the beings coming down where they did. As for the school being near the burial sites, well, I don't know. I mean, you know, schools get put where there's places to put them, and burial sites are all around. So
Yeah.
I think I think the significance of the landing site was the school, and not the burial sites being sacred or not. That would have been probably highly likely of no consequence to the aliens, who wouldn't understand the cultural significance of that site at all. Yeah.
The chance of actually having spirit activity would be quite high around a burial site as well.
Especially after a craft landed.
There's also a lot of chatter about there's a mining operation nearby where the school is, and there is some patterns out there of ETs investigating human mining operations across.
I think it was a uranium mine too.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it was mining, but I've heard uranium. Yeah,
but you think they were there to meet the kids?
Yeah, so but you guys are saying it's likely. It sounds like because some people always wondered if they were there to check out the mine and just the kids were just a coincidence. But do you guys get the impression the whole point was to talk to those children?
I believe it was. In the documentary, towards the end, they talk about telepathic messages being received from the beings.
Yeah.
And they showed the kids gave their interpretation of them, you know, which was limited, which it always is at best when we're trying to understand what we're being shown and told by the ET races, but even more so when you're dealing with a child. Or then again, in some respects, it maybe makes it purer. But they're talking about pollution and the state of the earth and beware of technology, etc., etc. And as Dr. Mack pointed out at the end of the video, as a child psychologist, it's the kids that are going to grow up with these ideas that are going to be able to influence society and, you know, do good. Adults, you know, we're kind of set in our ways to a degree, aren't we, by the time we reach adulthood? But if you know, can teach a kid good stuff at the very young age, then they grow up with that. I believe that was the significance of the school. What do you think?
I think that the races have learnt from past human behaviour and past extraterrestrial behaviour never to place the power into a specific group of people, and that generally when they're disseminating information, they'll do it across a wide range of humans because they're specifically looking to have that information disseminated globally and not held by one specific group of people. The reason that they're coming to the children and adults as well and giving imagery of destruction and technology. I think one of the girls says something that she'd been technologied or something. It was very interesting the way that she phrased that.
Yeah.
That they warned her about being technologied. And that's one thing that the Zetas have spoken to us continually about is the singularity in 2045 and where they see the human race heading on the linear timeline in regards to what's going to take place for the planet and for the human species. And so I believe that many of the beings that are coming here and interacting with humans are trying to alert humans to the fact that they need to be careful about technology and the role that it will play in the future for the human race.
Yeah.
Technology, yes, Michael, that's right. Yeah. All right. So sorry, yeah. And what else have you got written down there?
I noted that the kids all described how the beings were walking, and they described them as being very graceful and walking with a very flowing, fluid motion. And for me, that really struck a chord. I've got conscious recall of being on craft. Screen memories gone, just on their own, no hypnosis, la-di-da, and all of that. And one of the things that really struck me strikes me when I think back on it, is how gracefully these beings moved on the craft. This 6 foot, 7 foot tall being with arms so long. I don't know how long his arms must have been. Just it's like as somebody said, like they glided across the floor. It's exactly how I've seen them move, which is very different to how they move on planet. But I asked the Zetas about this and why the difference. Why on planet do they move in a more cumbersome way, and why on craft do they just seem to float or glide? And he says it's a supported environment, that with it on the craft, they I don't know, it supports them as they move. And for me, I found that very striking when quite a few of the kids were able to describe that, and I hadn't seen that in any witness statement testimony before. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you recall feeling that your movement was different? I know it's kind of, on a craft versus here.
I wasn't moving. I was all bunched up in the corner, trying not to freak out on that particular occasion. Yeah, I wasn't going anywhere. On other occasions, I've been, typical on laying down on the surface of the whatever it is, bed, table, and having no desire to move, like being so comfortable with the situation. I was very happy about to be there, and I felt like I was just among friends. Really hard to explain.
When you described that they move cumbersome on Earth,
on their planet, not on this Earth.
On their planet. Okay. How is it? Does it like they move slow or jerky? How would you describe the cumbersomeness? Like
they are heavy and weighted down, even though they shouldn't be, because they're so willowy. Yeah.
There is a lot of reports out there in the experiencer kind of lore of just some variation of short greys anyway being quite clumsy in terms of navigating the environment when in an experiencer's house or something, like bumping into objects, having difficulty walking, almost like they're not used to our gravity or atmosphere, or even seeming like they potentially weren't used to the bodies they were in, was another theory that was going around. So there is seemingly some experiences have witnessed them being quite cumbersome when down on here. But I hear the graceful stuff a lot as well.
That would be the same as if you were on another planet.
Yeah.
It's true that some of these entities have like the ability to essentially, via technology, perhaps float. That comes up. They can kind of float around a bit. It
literally looks like they're just gliding along. You just jogged my memory, actually. That's bizarre. I had an experience one morning. I woke up, must have been before the sun come up, no idea what time it was. And what did I see? I saw something floating across the bloody room. What did I see? I can't remember what it was.
You saw it being floating across.
Yeah, I can't. I just remember going, what the hell is that? And it was, clearly off the ground by 3, 4, 5 foot. Yeah, that was, I'd forgotten about that one. Thank you.
Danny asks, I wonder what kind of weapons they have. If you've got ability to shift consciousness for even beings around you, then you don't need a vast range of there's a toot. You don't need a vast array of weaponry when you can easily shift perspective of a human or any being, really.
Yeah. Is it very quiet, or have we frozen? I'm not sure.
Oh, we haven't frozen.
We haven't frozen. Oh, we're good. The other thing I wrote down was the sound of the craft that these kids were describing. Some of them were describing the buzzing, and I think hearing the buzzing is quite a common sound experiences report. But one of them was strange. They said they sounded, they could hear a flute being played. This poor little girl, she looked absolutely so upset, and she'd heard a flute playing. And it reminded, the only thing I could liken that to was the sound of the tone that hybrids have. They get it in their ear. I don't know whether you know anything about the flute sounds.
That's probably just a reference to probably what was going on with the craft at that point.
You mean like their perception of it?
It could have been, but it could have also been the dome over the craft. One thing about the dome is when the dome's in activity, they actually, so let's imagine that this glass has a dome over it. As the dome stays there, the actual dome, they grow. And we've seen these domes move meters and meters every day and expand out. And the longer the craft stays in place, the greater the dome becomes. It's like there's this pulsing interaction between the dome and the craft. We've even seen that once when a dome is in operation, William Trinite, the co-author of the books that we've written, Primer of Zeta Race and the Zeta Interviews, was a couple of 100 meters away from where the craft had landed. And when the craft landed, he stumbled with his partner against the fence. There was such an effect, a wave effect, an energetic effect. There was another person that was on the property who absolutely didn't believe in extraterrestrials at all. And that person was unable to sleep for 3 full nights because the edge of the dome had now moved towards the house, and the frequency of the dome was now affecting that person's ability to move into the sleep state. They then, the parent asked me if the adult child, the 18, 19-year-old, would be allowed to go to sleep, and we spoke to the Zetas, and they pulled the dome in so that the person could sleep.
Oops.
Oops.
Yeah, I've heard that the pulsing, that it's like I don't know how to describe. It's like an in and out sound when they're around. It's very, very strange. Yeah.
Of all of the races, which one would you say is the most frightening and dangerous? Humans.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying beings.
Eat everything.
Ready to
kill everything.
Ready to destroy their own planet.
Starve their own.
At the press of a button.
Leave them homeless.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Horrendous.
We keep projecting onto other races. This is the problem. We keep projecting all of our fears and desires, our power, our control, believing that somehow those races are like us. If they were, there would not be one person alive on this planet today.
Yeah. Claire says she was amazed that the kids had no fear and they all ran straight towards it. I think some of them were a little bit frightened, but the vast majority did seem to head straight for it. I know I would have done if I was that age. You would have been like trying to climb on top of the damn thing. You'd be in
Pack my bag, I'm coming home.
Yeah. I thought there's quite a few of them that talked about when they looked at the guy, the beings with their big black eyes, that they felt compelled to look. Yeah. And a lot of them were reported feeling faint or dizzy, off balance, and had to look away to regain their composure. I thought that was very interesting.
That's Johnny's pretty funny. I have to agree.
What did he say?
He said humans are the stupidest. That's okay.
So I just want to say, if you have a question, put it in caps, or put like write the word question, because it just helps me to see it down the side.
I've got a question for everybody in the chat.
There we go.
Who's actually seen a being close up and personal like these kids, face to face, looking into their eyes?
Yeah, give us.
Has anybody actually
reaction.
ever done that? I mean, I know I have multiple times. I know Cyan has. It's absolutely, oh boy, how can I even say this? It's like they can see straight into your soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are struggling to find yourself in that moment.
Yeah, black out.
And well,
I know I've blacked out.
Yeah, you'll probably black out, but
Yeah.
when you don't black out, you wish that you had. That's the funny thing. Until you get to the point where you're able to reconcile. I had an experience of this for 9 months, and it took me 9 months of them looking at me for me to be able to withstand looking at them. So this was just looking at them, not blacking out.
Lynn has. Hey, Lynn.
Hey, Lynn, how's it going? Lynn has, but you already knew that. Yeah. So why am I now bouncing around on my own voice?
I have no
Can I ask
idea.
you, Paul?
Yeah.
So, is there a different? Because you've encountered other species as well. Is it the same regarding the looking into their eyes?
No, not at all.
With other species.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
So it's specifically greys.
Why is that? Why do the greys have that effect?
Because the zetas or the greys have the ability to shift consciousness around them as they move, and so they carry the phenomenon with them. And so when they're in your house, when they're out of craft, their normal daily psychological and conscious state is one of moving through the phenomenon themselves. They are in a highly expansive state where, and I said this multiple times on this show, if you ask a Zeta or a Grey a question, they do not think the way humans do. They will view this on an expansive scape, and it's darkness, not dark as in bad, but dark as in expansiveness, like a universal mindscape. And they'll have every single nuance or facet of answers for the question, and they'll choose the one that they believe would be most appropriate for the individual. This becomes a problem when you ask them a question about technology or any question. They give you the answer that you can understand. If they then give Cyan the answer, they're not lying. They're just giving Cyan the answer that they know that she can cope with.
It will be much, much simple for me. Much, much simpler. It would not be the same answer they'd give to a scientist.
Yeah.
I wouldn't understand the answer they gave to a scientist, probably, more than likely.
So I just wanted to go back to that situation where you're looking into their eyes. That's a completely different situation than them coming into the room and taking somebody and moving them onto craft and all that. It's like, have you ever tried to play the staring game where you stare at somebody and it's the first person that blinks? You know what I mean? They're just not going to blink. Yeah. And as they're not blinking, they're burrowing into your consciousness.
Yeah.
And everything that you think, everything you feel is now amplified and placed in front of you. And so we have to understand that this is why they actually black people out. They make people black out because they know that your local mind, your construct, is going to be damaged by the encounter. That's the first thing. They also give people screen memories because they're trying to limit the amount of damage that they are creating for a person consciously as well.
So what is the damage coming from? Like, what did you have to reconcile with yourself in order to be in their presence and to have them stare at you and you stare at them? What was the process you had to go through to be able to handle that?
It was
60 years. It started when you were 18 months old.
Yeah.
Didn't it?
So it's not something that you can learn. It's about, it's crazy as it sounds, if you get a pot of water and you stand in it and then light the fire, it'll get to a certain temperature and then you have to jump out. Well, if you keep doing that, at some point you're going to be able to withstand a certain amount of pressure. And so from their perspective, they're looking to see how much psychological pressure you can be under before you have what's called a residual effect from contact. Be aware that any person that truly has contact with extraterrestrial beings will be undergoing what they call strength of mind training, whether you realize it or not. And they'll be looking to see whether you are evidencing your contact, whether you are looking for clarity in your contact, and you will be treated accordingly in your contact with the race as well. If they see that you are subject to the woo factor, they'll just amp up the phenomenon for you and then just walk away, because they'll know that you're not going to challenge their behavior.
Yeah.
They want to see whether you will challenge what they give you.
Yeah.
And work out what type of consciousness you have. Everybody's consciousness is different. So they're seeking to work out whether they can communicate with you effectively.
I'm interested in Overlander, your comment here. What happened after that? Did you remain conscious? Did they disappear? Maybe you just blacked out.
When I was face to face
with three greys, they didn't expect me to wake up. It made them chatter between each other. It was the first time I forced myself out of sleep paralysis and lifted my head up.
I've been there and done that.
I've been there and done that too. I blacked out. That was all I remembered. There was nothing else.
I didn't black out.
You didn't black out.
I forced them to not black me out by forcing my intention. And they said, well, that's fine. And then
now you're going to have to stay
They
awake.
continued on with the procedure, and I suffered through that, but I was able to be aware of what was going on. I was very grateful for the ability to be able to stay awake, having been blacked out hundreds of times, to now be able to stay awake and look at them in the eyes, the three of them, and not generally talk to them at all, but just watch the methods, the way they interact with each other.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah, Overlander, if you would just write me a quick note there to see what happened, that would be interesting.
Claire said, "Has anybody?"
Yeah, I just saw that. I was just scrolling through. Has anyone ever had a heart attack for seeing an alien? Or pull through his twisties all over the lounge?
Yeah, chips.
Bit like knickknacks in the UK.
Just threw me chips everywhere.
And then came running into the bedroom. I've just seen a 7-foot black eater in the front room. I'm like, bugger, I missed it. That was good.
It was a hell of a night. There you go.
Yeah. Hang on, where was it? I missed it. Yeah, okay. It was a hell. There we go.
And then right after that, I astral traveled.
You astral traveled. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hang on.
Up there.
Lynn, how do you get so good with your comments?
Lynn's really good, isn't she?
Hang on. That one there. Hang on. They blacked me out after they chatted. Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I had been. I was asleep. I woke up. Knew they were in the room. The next second, I'd come up off the bed, about 4 or 5 foot, floating in the air. I could actually feel my hair just hanging down. My hair was really long then. I was absolutely bricking it. I've never experienced fear like it. It was something out of the X-Files. It was beyond harrowing. Then they span me around 90 degrees, so my feet are now facing the window in the bedroom. And I was absolutely, I don't even have the words to describe how scared I was. Somehow, and I don't know how, I managed to say hello so through this horrific fear, I managed to say hello. Can I see you? And I heard in my head, yes, like someone had just put a megaphone into my brain and spoken out loud. I was like, that startled me. I tried to turn my head. I could just move my head just very slightly. Couldn't turn it enough to see them. Heard the clicking. Then that's me gone out of it, cold. Remembered the next evening as I was cooking tea and nearly dropped the saucepan all over the kitchen floor. I was just literally walking across the kitchen floor and poof, the whole lot came back, and that was it. I didn't sleep for weeks after that. I could not allow myself to go to sleep for weeks. It was horrendous. But yeah, there you go.
And says, when I was faced with 3 zetas in my face in 1993, I was right in, one was right in my face reading me, and that's what he said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reading your consciousness, understanding your capacity to withstand them, trying to work out. They're trying to develop a protocol that is based around extraterrestrial contact. They're not just going to one person or 10 people and asking how to do that, because that's not going to work. Because if they come near a person and the person's psychological construct collapses if they get too close. So what they're going to do is go to as many humans as possible and develop a generic protocol that they can use to contact as many humans as possible. All right. You guys got any questions?
Well, I could throw one in. You mentioned earlier on during one of these kind of staring matches that they won't blink. I mean, do Zetas, or I guess, I mean, it might be different for different species, but do they blink? Do greys blink physically?
Yeah, as I said before, they've got a nicotinating lens that goes diagonally across.
Uh-huh. They don't. They wouldn't blink like a human would.
No.
Okay, because
Is it a
something to look
red
out for
one?
in these CG renders that they try to say are real footage. If they blink, that might be.
No, they don't. You'll know that if you sit and stare them in the eyes for an hour, you'll see them blink. They do blink, so not like that though, but up diagonally.
How you hold their gaze for an hour though without blacking out?
You don't have a choice.
What,
You can
Oh, go ahead.
go, Chris. No, Chris.
Oh no, I was just going to ask. There's been some reports of greys with like red eyes, and I'm wondering, is that what their eye covering color is? It's red.
Can I ask you is that at night or during the day? Because I could understand.
That's at night. There's been 3 separate sightings that I know of where that's been reported, where they look like little chubby grays and they have red eyes.
Like the Bledsoe case.
The Bledsoe is one of them. Yes.
Yeah, Bledsoe. Yeah, absolutely. My theory is, it's just a theory, that at night, of course, because they're able to see through infrared, they're also able to see some of the filtered light when they're out and around. It may be that those specific race, once again, that race of beings, that's how they show themselves. So initially, we just worked with one Zeta race, and they don't have that type of eye covering or whatever. And then we had the opportunity to meet 2 more races this year, and that was great.
2 more grey.
2 more grey species of Zetas, and they are totally different than the Zetas that we've worked with. They look sort of similar, but the way that they act, the way that they think, the way that they use their technology is totally different. It would be like going from one country to a completely different country. Like I went from Australia to Japan, and they had totally different protocols, processes, foods, those sorts of things. And we need to understand that we're dealing with a lot of different races. And so, Chris, that specific race that was contacting Bledsoe, was my theory is that it's just a different Zeta race. That's all.
Have you ever asked them what their common ancestry is, or where their common genetic material comes from?
He froze.
Oh, can you see me now?
Yeah. Hello.
All right. Hello. Have you asked them? Have you ever asked them what their common genetic material is from?
You mean their nucleotide sequences and DNA?
No, I mean like they're because they all share the gray morphotype. So did they have all similar origin from the same place?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the reference to the plants, Paul? Is it? Or is that what
correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about
that one?
that one. Click on that one. No, it was the one above it, wasn't it?
This one.
That one.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm having to point at the screen because she's got the mouse.
It's all great.
That's my level of technology. Just point. What are your thoughts on sleep paralysis? Suffered a lot of sleep paralysis when I started doing astral traveling. The physical body was asleep, but the consciousness was awake. Then, of course, I was very much associated with the abstract thought process of the subconscious mind, but in doing so, I was also able to bring up a narrative that was based in the astral, where a being or something was coming towards me and trying to pull me out of my body, all those sorts of things. I learned just to move my finger, and then it would be instantly finished. And once I'd done that 20 or 30 times, the realization came about that sleep paralysis and the reality of what takes place in consciousness when you have sleep paralysis, for me, was based around my subconscious. Yeah. And the fears based around that sort of thing as well.
Does that mean someone could increase their astral travel by addressing their subconscious and asking? Okay.
Yeah.
And addressing their fears as well.
Okay.
When I first started astraling when I was 5, I had no fear. I would go anywhere. And then, of course, as I got older and older and had more and more experiences, then it became an issue for me. Yeah.
What are the Zeta's life?
A life goal. It's difficult to have a life goal when all you need to do is a shift from one container to the next. So basically, you're a genetically created, modified entity, a container, and you shift consciousness from one container to the next. The container being your own genetically modified DNA maturated into a container. That's why people call them biological entities. But they think that they're actually somehow containing AI. Well, it depends on your definition of AI. We've seen these Zetas AI, because they don't call it AI, they call it IA. They call it inanimate animate. And the way that the IA shows itself is bereft of any kind of signs that you're actually dealing with an AI or an IA. So in regards to their goals are simply to perform the function that they're genetically created to perform.
Yeah.
Aside from the spirit entities, do the Zetas speak much of the other inhabitants of our planet and the potential?
Is there potential for crypto or ultra-terrestrials?
They would talk about that. They've actually had we had a situation that I can't go into with a jinn where they just basically cleared that entity. They seem to have no problems in clearing any type of entity. That's the thing with the Zetas, because all they do is expand the frequency of their consciousness till that being no longer can exist in that space. It's a very interesting technique. Same as a human, being able to move interdimensionally to different dimensions just by increasing their frequency through an act of intention.
I'm curious, Paul. So, if there is, say, a spirit person in an experiencer's house, and then a Zeta shows up, I mean, the spirit person and the Zeta, are they able to see each other and perceive each other?
Never. No. It's not possible. It's like you being on one radio station, and Chris being on another. You just don't hear or see each other. It doesn't work that way.
So imagine spirit a short wave and the ET are a long wave. Both exist. Both is existing at the same time, but you can only listen to one or the other. So if the Zetas came in and a spirit person was in the house, the spirit person would just disappear, dissolve.
Well,
Move
because
away?
the frequency shifts,
It would just,
it's like a
yeah,
spirit
just
person
gone.
moving towards a heterodyne trance state. The spirit person would just simply just dissipate.
Yeah,
Not
dissipate.
themselves
That's the word I was
consciously,
looking for.
but their ability to connect to this specific reality would dissipate. There's another question there. There's questions flying everywhere.
So are the greys biological drones? At least their bodies.
Well, when you say drone, a drone gives the indication that it's actually operated by a separate entity. This is the thing.
Yeah.
So you've got this thing flying in the sky. I'm sitting there with controls and I'm flying that. It doesn't work that way. The consciousness is populating the drone. It's in the drone. And so the physical container is the enacted, like a human being. You are enlivened or enacted by your own consciousness, by your higher self.
Yeah.
And that means you could say, are you a biological entity? Yes, you are. Are you a drone? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, these are all ethical discussions that need to be considered when we talk about these sorts of things.
This is just going back to the
when you say they clear them, are they not viewing them as a sentient equals?
Not if the free will of the person requesting the clearing has been violated.
That's correct.
Yeah. The Zetas, above anything, abide by free will.
If your free will is that you don't want that being with you, then they'll just increase your frequency so that you are now out of range of being influenced by that being.
Megan. Hey, Megan. Can we talk more about the tone that hybrids hear? Talk about the tone.
Yeah, off you go. I'll just...
You just sit there.
I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So, okay, so if you're a hybrid of one of the grey species, the Zetas, they'll use a little etheric implant to be able to locate you on this planet, generally through all the noise and clutter that pollutes everything. They need to be able to find where you are, and when they activate that etheric implant, so it's not a physical thing, not anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore. When they activate it, it rings like a little tone. If you've ever been for a hearing test, you know they play all the different tones and you have to listen to them. It's like that beep in your ear, and depending on, mine's lower than that normally. Sometimes they can be very quiet, and sometimes they can be so loud and have this horrendous pressure change that goes across your head that and they nearly used to knock you over. I've had them be so phenomenally loud, they've just made me stop walking. I couldn't carry on walking or I'd lose my balance. Most of the time, though, they're just a continuous noise of about 8 seconds. Now, if you are hearing crazy noises in your ears, do go and get your hearing checked. We're not saying that all tones that you hear in your ears are from etheric implants. So do get your ears checked. But that's a potential for you.
Are the Zetas the only ones who use that tone?
No,
I was going to
not.
say no.
No, they're not.
Yeah, there you go. No.
So we need to try to keep up with the questions.
I'm trying.
That one.
Here we go.
Do the Zetas have a base on the moon? No.
Not that was quick.
It's used. The lot of planets are just used as observation points and perspectives. You know, whether they may have had one there or whatever. Do you really need a base on the moon when you've got a craft that can just land and be a base anyway? I mean,
please put your questions in capitals.
Caps.
It's really hard to see.
We'll have to do a Lynn Wallington.
Yeah.
Make sure that you put your questions in caps.
Were the Zetas ever human? No.
Never.
None of the grey species have evolved from humans. They are not time travelers.
And they're not humans in the future.
And they're not humans in the future.
That one is
they don't even eat meat. They're actually all vegan. And that's, a whole
every time I hear that, I
conversation.
just want to burst out laughing.
That's because you know they evolved from plants.
Yeah, it's just...
hang on. There's a question above Claire there. So communication has to do with frequency meditation. Would diet enhance the contact?
Your diet enhances lots of things. Your immune system, contact, everything. If you, I'm going to say it, all right? I knew I was going to say it one day. If you're eating meat, you're reducing your frequency.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I think most people know that anyway, but it's up to you what you do. It's your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not here to preach.
No.
Okay, I'm just scrolling down because I'm just looking at the
Yep.
time.
Oh, don't worry about that. It's more about all the questions. Look.
What is it difficult to spot when they're not in caps?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Neil. Hey, Neil.
Neil. G'day, Neil.
He gets the tones a lot.
Neil gets tones as well.
Yeah, you go.
Overlander, I want to say thank you guys for allowing us to glean answers through casual discussion. We love casual discussion. If it's stressed, we're gone. We're just
we're totally out.
Oh, look, there's a technical glitch. Press, gone. No. So scroll down.
Hang on.
No, that's
Megan. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
A tone 5 days later.
Okay.
Taken. Yeah. That's just a comment.
I have a resonant tone right before contact. Interesting that you say that. I had tones so strong when I was 14 years old, I would basically drop to my knees. They were so powerful. It was like a foghorn on a ship had gone off next to my head. It would drop me.
Yeah. I found that with the tone is for a reason. You don't just have a random tone. There's always a reason for it, and generally it's because they are trying to work out where you are.
Yeah.
On a few occasions I've felt the frequency of the room change, the energy of the room change, and I know they've been around. So there's always a reason for it, and it's always quite instant, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so we've been on for an hour, and I just wanted to say next week we've got a couple of people coming on, and we're going to be talking about screen memories, and people are going to talk about their own stuff.
We're going to have a deep dive into
and then after that we'll have the experiences back, and we're going to be talking about Roswell. The real deal, the real stuff, Roswell.
Yeah, detailed information.
Oh boy. All right.
Okay.
It's been great.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed today.
Thank you for all the questions.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Listen, I'm going to do a plug. Go to the Zeta Connection YouTube and click that subscribe button, because we're powering on. We've got like 170 people now. It's been.
You're excited about that, aren't you?
170 people go, are you serious? Like that many?
And they reminded us to remind you all that we have our website, which we do have, and we've just remembered about, and that's got lots more information on it as well, about the Zetas and the information they've given us. Oh, hang on.
I just want to address a couple of questions.
Hang on, here we go.
Is there a master race with a master plan controlling the agenda of the Greys? We have the Council of Nine, and the Council of Nine is very, very interesting how it works. The Zetas are represented by beings on the Council of Nine. The Anunnaki are on the Council of Nine. We know some of the Anunnaki beings as well, and I know that that's quite controversial. The Zetas are so prolific in their existence that for them to be controlled by any other race is basically impossible.
Yeah.
All right. I know that that's what people have been told, and we're all just working through all of the stuff and the folklore, all the stuff that's out there. But when you actually get to work with them one-on-one, you get to see what the reality of the situation is. Good or bad, that's the difference. So if you're going to work with reptilians, you've got to be in all the way, and you've got to understand that some are good, some aren't good, whatever, and that you may meet some great reptilians, or you may meet some wonderful Anunnaki, or wonderful Greys, or or mantis beings. There's another one. You see, we can talk about so many different races, and and I guess maybe what one day we need to talk about is how do you get to meet all these races, and what's a careful way of doing that as well. So
we'll put it on the list.
We'll put it on the list that we've got.
I'm just going to say, Claire, send me a message on Facebook about that, if you could.
And the question is, who are the Council of Nine? You know what? Come back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a big
I'll definitely
subject.
answer that question for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, I think that's everything. And yes, Neil, we're trying to get in contact with you as well.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go. We are actually going to go now.
And we have no outro music, so it's just.
No, Lynn, we haven't quite got to grips with the outro music yet, but we're working.
You got to sing then.
Absolutely. You are. You can.
Go, Chris.
Hey, listen. Thanks, Oak. And
We have to sing in duet.
And you get a rest next week, and then we'll have you back again. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Okay,
so-
so
Yeah, thank you.
we're just going to abruptly end. So apologies for that, but that's the best we can do.
See you later, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good week.
All right.
Bye.